Welcome back, everybody, to the last Mock Draft Monday of the 2025 off season. That's right. This is the very last one. Um,
We
I've
made it.
had a great time doing this off season, and as a big celebration of the very last one, we've got the whole gang together. Not just me, the chill uncle. We've also got AVB in the building here. We've got my friend Drew, who's been my mainstay through most of this, and of course, last but very much not least, Dad himself is in the building. That is right, everybody. Joe Camo, the Cardinal Rule himself,
Sure.
is here.
I am back, and I brought groceries, so the kids are not
We can
completely
eat.
like.
We can
I
eat.
know where you were running out of peanut butter and jelly and bread and ramen, so I came back, restored the pantry, restocked the pantry, and then. But I can't promise when I'll be. No, I'll probably be back. I think first round.
Thank you,
I think
Mac.
we're gonna do something. Yeah.
Well, for the first time, maybe ever, Dad went and got milk, and he actually came back. So we are beating
Wow.
allegations this
Wow.
time. All
Thank you,
right.
sir.
It,
Not gonna lie.
it just got dark around here, didn't it?
Dad, did you find the milk? He did. He did. We're finally set up. We got to eat tonight, so that's why everyone is in chipper spirits. Not just because it's draft week, but Dad finally came back with the goods. All right, Eric Reed, it's nice to have you in here. Oh, okay, a Mike Green supporter. That is interesting. We'll get to that just here in a minute. But real quick, how was everybody's week? Are we ready for draft week? Are we mentally ready for it?
I know I am more than stoked. The draft fever hit me last week. I'm obviously fortunate enough to be going to the draft in my home state in Wisconsin with my family. It's a rare time that all of us are actually back in the same state, let alone same area. So I will represent Cardinals fans well, and I hope to see some Cardinals fans up there that are I appreciate all the fans of the year, but I want to see the true Cardinals fans as well. So hopefully there's lots of red, Cardinal red.
The right red, exactly. Drew, how have you been?
I've been doing all right, going through some health stuff and not having the best day today. Was a little worried I wasn't going to make it, but started feeling a little bit better this afternoon. So, and I couldn't miss this. It's the last one of the year, and I know we've got some fun stuff planned. So, I'm excited. I'm definitely ready for the draft to be here. I'm at this point. I mentioned on Twitter /X/ whatever Elon wants to brand it at this point, mentioned that I think I have prospect fatigue with all of these guys at this point. I hate doing every mock because I don't like any of the first rounders. We picked them all apart, so I'm just ready for Thursday.
Yep. And Dad, how are you, man?
I'm all right. One of my sons is sick, so I was home with my boys today. Woke up middle night last night. He was not feeling well, shall we say? But I'm doing well. I don't have the kind of fatigue you have, Drew, because I've been getting to sit back in the chat with my happy ass and just taking kind of cheap shots and joking around, and it's been a lot of fun being in the peanut gallery. But I do share your sentiment. I think this is kind of a league wide thing, that this draft class is kind of funky. It's not top heavy, but it is kind of deep. A lot of value on day 2, really, and even into day 3. And was just reading something today. I think an article by Adam Schefter talking about how there's the perceptions around the league are that pick 10 is not that much different than pick 30 in terms of the quality of player, which affects draft strategy and the ability to trade. So I think the first round players, like, there's not a lot of players I'm enamored with, which probably has made it a little less fun because there aren't as many exciting names to talk about there in the first round.
Right. It's just a weird year. This is nothing like last year where at least 80% of the fan base was on board slamming the table for Marvin Harrison Jr. I know we've got 1/4 maybe of that fan base in the building tonight who might have been in the other camp, but still a pretty rare instance of, I would say, the vast majority of fans being behind one player that most likely would be there because you're picking high enough, This year, truly cliched, but anything can happen. And I don't really think there's a player that will really surprise me.
Yeah.
Real quick to say hi to everyone who's in here. Saltiest Gaming, what's up, everyone? Thank you for being in here. We got Chris Young, who is usually here with us. Final Mock Draft Monday of the off season is always bittersweet. It is. Mock Draft Monday is one of the fun traditions that Joe started on this channel that I think we all kind of love and adore. Gary Shaw's pounding the table for Walter Nolan at 16, which I'm sure we will see a good amount of here in a little bit. And Chris Young is asking, what's the latest on the Derek Harmon injury stuff? I barely saw that this afternoon. Haven't really been on social media the past few days. I am not totally sure what's going on with Derek.
I'll look it up.
Okay. Thank you. And Dana, everyone has medical red flags. Red flags for you, red flags for you.
You get a red flag, and you get a red flag. Right?
That
Look
has
into your seat.
That's been the last few weeks. Everyone that has some questions in the first round, that's being brought up, and the first round will be it'll be interesting this year. I've, like you, read so many times about the drop off in talent. 12 to 50 is really not that big of a stretch, and it was one of the ESPN talent people I think I heard early in this offseason talking about this isn't a draft class that will produce a lot of stars, but it should produce a good amount of starters. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty good way of describing this class. I think you can get starters out of this class almost anywhere, but there are probably very few of those like future all-pro Hall of Fame type of guys. Did you find something, Aaron?
Yeah, so this is getting really weird with the Derek Harmon thing because some guy, I don't know if he's a insider, but name of I think his name is Brian Broaddus, and he's the first guy to report anything about Derek Harmon, about anything injury related. Like he had a pretty clean bill of health at Oregon. And then some people are saying that maybe it's some sort of spine or cartilage issue that maybe an NFL team had found out. But I mean, those kind of things we usually find out a little bit faster. And if it's just happening now, I'm thinking it's all a smokescreen, probably to get him to drop lower and maybe get him out of a team or a situation he doesn't want to be in.
Yeah, this late feels a little bit iffy on that, considering how many medical professionals have their hands on these players by this point in the draft, especially someone who is like in that first round conversation. Derek Harmon, I'm sure, has met privately with a lot of teams who have their own private medical staff who are going to take a look at him while he's in for a visit. He did all the medical stuff at the combine, even if he didn't work out. Like a lot of doctors have had their eyes on him. So like a long-standing medical issue just popping up now would be pretty weird.
And even with that in regards, it's not, I don't think it would be anything to drop his draft stock, out of the first round or anything significantly below the top 45. It's just, they have all the resources in the world, and for something to pop up this late, like we would have known about this at the combine. So I don't think it's anything to really be concerned about.
Yeah, I would agree at this point. We'll get a few other people in, and then we're just going to jump straight into the mocks that we have, and then the submitted mocks, and then we've got a little surprise after we get through those. All right, we'll see what that is. Jake Wordley, I know you're in here talking with Dana about the medical stuff, and Mizaki Felix. I looked through the Discord again, and I did not find any mock drafts. I am really
slide in those DMs.
Yeah, you guys can't always send me stuff directly or tag me on Twitter. Gary Shaw pointing out smoke. Yeah, I mean, maybe some of that stuff happens. Chris Young, if Harmon's healthy, he's my favorite choice at 16. I'm also an admitted Derek Harmon truther for sure. And Dana, spine or cartilage. If it is a spinal thing.
Like what? Does he have spondy? Like, does he have spondylosis, kyphosis, lordosis, whatever, or?
Yeah.
because I've trained athletes who do have spondy, and it is rather hard to get them to load their legs and squat and stuff like that. But until we know, we don't.
Yeah, I trust a lot of doctors are getting their eyes on these people. So if he's the pick, I'll still be excited about him until something concrete happens that's terrible. But I'm going to pull up our mocks. We're going to go ahead and start with mine, I think. All right. So I did go with the trade down here because this is the only team, the more and more I think about it, that I can truthfully see a trade partner in the second half of the first round because of the issues in the first round talent that we've already talked about. But let's say in the scenario, Shedeur Sanders has fallen. He's still there at 16, and Pittsburgh is pretty desperate for a quarterback. They make sense to me as a trade partner. So them coming up, giving us a third rounder and a fourth rounder next year. And we go with what's not necessarily my favorite pick in the bunch, but there is some type of gut feeling that I've got about Kelvin Banks being a player that this team likes. So he was the best offensive lineman left on this board. I went ahead and I took Kelvin Banks. I didn't feel great about it, but I also thought I am probably going to still get a very, very good defensive lineman in the second round, which I did. Omar Norman Lott still was there at 47, which in the last 5 to 7 days of doing mocks, Norman Lott's been gone by 47 in the vast majority of them. He has really risen up the draft boards the past couple weeks. He was pretty consistently in the 80s there for a long time, but he's gaining a lot of steam right now. So I was able to snag him at 47, feel very good about it. Has some of the best advanced pass rush metrics of any defensive lineman in this class. Love him as a player. Another player that I feel like this team really likes, Femi Oladejo from UCLA. Bit of a developmental edge, not the perfect player day one, but a player to add to an edge room where you at least have some leeway now. You've got Josh Sweat in the room, hopefully a healthy BJ Ojolari, Baron Browning a full year in the defensive scheme. Oladejo doesn't have to be the guy day one. So I think he's a developmental guy that the Cardinals seem to be really interested in. At slot wide receiver, was able to pull Jalen Knoll with that second, third round pick that I got from Pittsburgh. He's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, potential slot wide receiver, compete with Greg Dortch for that role guy in this draft, specifically for that role, which I do think we need to upgrade slot wide receiver. I think that's kind of an underrated need that this team has. And then Danny Stutzman, linebacker from Oklahoma in the fourth. Go ahead and pick up a safety, R.J. Mickens from Clemson in the fifth, who Mickens is going all over the place. He's pretty high on the PFF board now. Sometimes he's going in the third round. Sometimes he's still there in the seventh round. Don't really know what's going on with him. And then a developmental tackle late in the seventh, Jalen Travis out of Iowa State. So that is mine. Let's see how much the chat didn't like that.
Not sure if there was.
I think the chat was indifferent, and that might be worse. Kevin.
Oh, that hurts, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, PFF didn't give you a nice grade either down there at the bottom.
I know. Okay, well, at least Mazaki Felix does like the Knoll selection. When Jalen Knoll is around at one of the spots that we have, I like to take him because he's a slot wide receiver option for me.
Jake Werderly has a glowing review of yours.
You're getting the same kind of reaction to your mock that WrestleMania Night 1 got.
Ooh. It is a whatever draft. Okay. So as much as that hurts my feelings, I feel the same way. I did this draft, but I feel Kelvin Banks as the pick. I do feel pretty about it. I get it.
Kelvin Banks is the least sexy option in the first round. He's safe. Yeah. He's a high floor, but he is the least sexy viable option at pick 16.
100%.
Reminds me of Jonathan Cooper.
Yeah, except
Yeah.
hopefully better. Hopefully, well, healthier.
A beat. Okay, you know what? It is. I agree with you. But for this one, I was trying to go a little bit more what I think the team will actually do rather than what I want them to do. And I don't think that Monty Ossenfort is necessarily a sexy drafter. Kelvin Banks is not a sexy pick. However, he can be your starting right guard day one. And I think that that's something that that they value quite a lot. Talking about injuries, Red Sea here's pointing out Norman Lott has a reported chronic knee issue. Again, anything that is being reported medically right now, 4 days before the draft, I am taking with a massive grain of salt. And Russ Carver, I think I see you in here, actually met Jonathan Cooper, gave him a ride home when I was doing lifts a few years ago. That's cool.
And
All
then
right.
Russ, to piggyback off of that, in 2013, I went to the preseason game up in Green Bay, and I actually sat next to his brother during the game. And later, after the game was over, Jonathan Cooper, Calais Campbell, and the rookie Patrick Scott came on over. I sat next to Patrick Scott, but Jonathan Cooper, Patrick Scott, and Calais Campbell came over and got to shake their hands.
Oh, that's cool. That's pretty neat. Okay. I think I've gotten my beating.
Exit stage left.
It's a B draft to me too. I'll take the B plus. I'll take it. Let's go ahead and go on. I think Joe is next. And it is.
Wow.
All right, Papa. Tell us
All
what
right.
you got.
So we talked about what a sort of kind of middle heavy draft this is, I guess you would call it. And I get, and I'm fully aware that trade backs, you need two to tango. And are you going to have trade partners who are willing to trade back? And I've got 3 trade backs. I think you're not going to have there are no trades that have happened in the first round leading into the draft. You're not going to have any pre-draft trades, but you might have a little posturing and positioning and moving day of when teams are on the board and a player, or when you see players have fallen and there's a team didn't think a guy would be there, and then in that moment maybe they do look to move up. So I leaned into the trades, leaned into getting extra draft capital to more than anything to demonstrate what this draft could look like if they could pull it off, because it is so middle heavy. So what I've got is a couple trade backs, and then picking at 31, Trey Amos, a guy who is on the blessed list, a guy that they did a 30 visit with, would be at starting outside corner for them for the future, a guy they really like. Then also had Omar Norman Lott, a nice 3 technique with a little bit of pass rush there at pick 47. Then I went with the inside linebacker, Carson Schwessinger. We've talked about their need for kind of a guy to be that true green dot Mike of the future. And I love picking those guys on day 2. He'll probably actually be gone before pick 54, to be honest. I think he might even sneak into the first round, but I really like him there. And then a pick that shows up in almost all of my mocks. In the 3rd round, Kevin Winston Jr., a safety out of Penn State. We've talked about safety. It's a position that's a sneaky need because Jalen Thompson, as much as I really do love him as a player, don't think he'll be here for another contract. I don't think they're going to invest a lot of money. Buddha, they did extend him, but you've got Rabbit and Buddha probably going to be the starters in 26. And then looking to the future, and Monty has a history of taking guys in the 3rd round who were injured, but were otherwise borderline first, second round talents. And Winston, based on his play the year before, he only played 2 games last year because of a partially torn ACL, but he was a guy PFF talks about as having first round potential if he had not had that injury. So this is another Garrett Williams situation, except at safety. So this is someone I really like in the 3rd round. You draft him. He doesn't have to do much this year. He's not a first round pick. You don't need him to start. But he's that guy that you let him ease into that, and by 2026, he's part of your. He's playing maybe nickel, but he's your starting safety 2-3 years from now, along with Rabbit. So I love getting him there. Then Tate Ratledge, you could put in a different offensive lineman. Obviously, I didn't go offensive line early. He's reasonably athletic. Starter would be, potential starter at guard. You could go tackle here. You could put a different offensive lineman in there, but I was going offensive line somewhere around there. Then I went with, Femi Olejo in the 4th round. I don't know if he'll last long, but he is such a perfect day 3, 3rd, 4th round developmental edge. He's got length, athleticism, and high motor. What he doesn't have is experience and polish, right? That's the guy you can coach up and develop. He's got the tools. If you get him in here, get him coached up, in a couple of years, he could be that really nice edge rusher for you. So I got him there. Kyle Williams will probably go before this, but he was the best receiver on the board. I do like picking up a receiver somewhere. He's versatile. He could play slot. He can play outside, has starter potential. There's other names you might go for at that late if Kyle Williams is gone. And then Ty Robinson, another kind of 3 technique who came on last year. Good potential to develop, has the traits, not the longest arms, but good athleticism for the position. When you're talking 5th round, if you can pull off a guy like that there, it's another piece to add to that rotation on the defensive line.
It all makes sense to me. All players that I think most are connected to the Cardinals in some way. I'm seeing what the chat is giving you, since apparently they were quite rude to me tonight. And this is something I've seen a bit, because I take Kyle Williams a lot in my mocks. Kyle Williams, good pick. I think most agree. Question of Kyle Williams is he going to last that long?
Yeah.
Probably not into the 4th round, but you play the board as you are given the board. That is all you can do with these. Same with Dana here. The back half is strong, much as I feel like I assume she's talking about Schlesinger, and that's a typo, is going higher. Can't follow you for playing the Simmons.
I think she meant Ty Robinson.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. I didn't see Robinson on there.
He was my last pick.
Same issue with him, too, because you can sometimes still get him in the PFF mock in the 7th round, and I don't think there's any way that happens. But Russ Carver here is agreeing that is a good draft. Paul G, always nice to have you in here, man. Always a pleasure to have you. Mizaki Felix saying that Amos has little to no college production. Would you like to address the allegations?
I mean, you're going a little more with the traits sort of a thing. I mean, when we say production, are we talking about, interceptions? Because there's a lot more, than that to interceptions, right? So if you look at him, maybe he doesn't have he's got 3 interceptions last year, none a couple years before, but he's got a PFF grade of 85.6 in 2024. That's pretty good. So
cornerback's one of the toughest positions to judge off of numbers, because it can be an amazingly good thing if your cornerback has very little production on paper, because people just refuse to throw towards them. There were years where Patrick Peterson did not put up much on a piece of paper, but it's because no one was stupid enough to throw in his general direction. Yeah. So you kind of look at like passer rating allowed, stuff like that, then that, and even interceptions, it's a nice, fun, sexy stat. It is not always super indicative, I think, of level of
Mizaki's saying he's had 3 career interceptions all last year. All in 1 year is pretty good. But I think if you're the number 1 cornerback, teams aren't going to target you as much, and so I'm not as worried about that.
And then if I could just jump in here real quick into Joe's point, Budda Baker also didn't get his first interception until 2021, I think, against the Cowboys, and then I think he had 2 in that game alone. So there is more to playing in a secondary position than INTs. As much as I harp on Patrick Peterson for not having as many, there's 2 can be true at the same time.
Yeah. People don't like my Winston pick. That's one of my favorites.
I was going to say, I love the Winston pick.
Yeah.
But, let me tell you, buddy, This community is not accepting of a safety pick this year.
Oh, it's a position, huh?
I've done it a lot, and
Okay.
people have.
You've taken the heat for that.
I have
right?
taken the safety heat a lot
Well,
this
I've
year.
been taking safety heat for years, but
Okay, yeah, because of your Jalen Thompson takes.
Yep.
Robert Moore, always good to have you in here, buddy. All right, Jake Werley saying the edge class isn't too strong when it's compared to the defensive line. Yeah, but there are a lot of guys out there, I think, this year that are starting level edges. There just aren't like Myles Garrett's out there in this class.
Hey, I do want to ask this to chat. Is it that you don't like Winston and the philosophy of taking a guy with first round talent in the third round because of injury, or is it because he's a safety? That's what I want to hear from the folks who didn't like that pick. Is it him or is it the position? That's what I'd like to hear.
Let us know. Joe gets extra credit just because he's dad.
Thank you for showing up. There's a social commentary. If you're a dad and you just show up, you get credit. There's a certain gender inequality to that, but just showing up for a dad seems
you're
to be
a parent.
Yeah,
there's something there. Sociology 3360, marriage and family.
Yeah,
we can talk about that in a totally separate stream on your other channel.
Right.
Okay, we have gone over those. All right. Robert Moore is agreeing with Red Sea against the Winston pick. Unfortunate. But Teo does like the Winston pick. Thank you. Thank you, Teo. Robert Moore is giving you an A- for that one.
Despite the Winston pick, so I appreciate that. How much of that is extra credit, I don't know, but I'll take it.
Yep, in spite of the Winston pick.
Right.
I don't think you're waiting on Winston. We've played 3 safeties under Gannon the last 2 years. They have had 3 safeties on the field multiple times. They were trying to find ways to use Dadrian Taylor-Demerson, which I think is a great thing. But I think in 2026, Jalen Thompson won't be with the team anymore. And your 2 top safeties will be Rabbit and Buddha. And I think it's smart to be looking at the safety room right now. Just like Dad says. Dana saying, do we need a 4th safety? Probably. Later is better at the moment, maybe with this year's top 3 in stone.
I just love the value, though. If this is a first round talent caliber guy in terms of the play, and you can get him in the 3rd round, you don't need him, to kind of do much this year, right? So, and listen, there's been talk about playing, Jalen in the slot some and moving some things around. So, there's arguments both ways. But I think when you look at it, especially in a scenario where there's a trade back like this, and you've got some extra picks that I created here in this scenario, getting good players, and that's something Monty's talked about. We'll see what happens. But you and I, Kyler, have both been on the train, and I know someone else in the chat mentioned that they were also Chris Young saying he's a fan of developmental safety. So, we'll be the 3 or so people on that train together, and let everyone else hate on us. So.
Exactly. Paul G is saying that an ACL tear in low production hurts his belief in Winston.
Well, and the low production was because of the injury this year. He played 2 games,
right.
But yeah.
But Teo saying I like the value for Winston, not to mention Buddha and Jalen have been injured on and off the last couple of years. Yeah, Jalen's in and out of the lineup quite a bit, just with various little injuries. Buddha, I think the last thing he had was that hand thing, right? That glove on for a while. But yeah, I mean, I think stashing a developmental safety this year makes sense if you can get good value with that. Will this Winston eat W's like the other Winston? Because if so, I'm all in.
That's the important question.
That's what we really need to know.
Right.
I just want to jump in and say one of the reasons why Philadelphia has been so successful is the fact that they plan for the future and they draft. They don't always draft for the here and now. They draft for
2 years
the next. Exactly. Like that's why they're okay letting Sweat and Milton go, is because they've got guys that can step up. They've got Jalix Hunt. They've got another guy, another defensive tackle that looks super freaky that they got a couple years ago. So
Can open a
it's
can
not.
of worms with that discussion.
Yeah,
Philly is how
we'll get into that more later.
Philly is not afraid of doing things in the draft and just generally organizationally that look funny, like last draft taking DBs back to back, Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. And that worked out just fine for them. And they got rid of the old guard. James Bradbury and Big Play are both gone now. You've got the youth movement there. Stuff works out for them. Howie Roseman is a warlock. That's my official position on him.
Yes.
All right. I think we've got Drew next. Drew, go ahead and take us through it.
So I tried getting a little bit higher grade this time. I got a few more A's in there, so hopefully my internet doesn't kick me off here this time. But I kind of went similarly with you. Went with mainly with players that I know we've met with. We were at the Morrison workout today, so kind of stayed in that lane. Vernon Broughton is the one sort of that I went kind of off the board. Ty Hamilton as well. But, we've talked about most of these players. Kelvin Banks, I'm maybe not as high on as some other people, but the Cardinals seem to definitely be interested in him. He was one of the 4 tackles we brought in. So it just sort of made sense in that position with the way the board fell for me on a trade back there with the Packers. Go ahead and pick him up. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Morrison there in the second round. He's another sans injury. He would be in the cornerback 1 conversation. Dejo, we've talked about. Broughton, I know there's some people that are really high on him. Finally started watching some stuff on him, and I can see why. He's another one of these just explosive defensive interiors. Got some pass rush upside. So if he ends up going in the 3rd round, I think that could be some good value. Stutzman, another high RAS linebacker that Kime would probably take in the 1st round at 16 if he were drafting it. But this was a Kime mock, but 100%. I landed him at a better value there at 115, which I think we would be happy at. Ty Felton, another one of the blessed list players. Same with Craig Woodson. I will be honest, I know nothing about Woodson yet. I'm going to have to dive into him a little bit in the next couple of days if I have time. And then Ty Hamilton, just a developmental defensive interior there, just sort of best player available of the positions that I thought we could use in that position.
Very nice. We have some Banks hate in here. Mizaki Felix saying no thanks to Banks. And I mean, we already mentioned it in mine. Banks is something that I've got a weird gut feeling about being really in play in the 1st round for the Cardinals, trade down or not. I don't feel amazing about it. It's not a sexy pick at all. And Aaron, I know you've been asked, I think last week when you were on, Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks. Membu's gone. He's going number 7 to New York. I think that's almost like in Sharpie at this point. Yep. Or at least Membu will be gone by 16. Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks, that's kind of who we have left on the offensive line by the time we're at 16. What is your thought on those 2 players?
Well, I'm taking Josh Simmons at this point. I have heard rumblings about the Bears being infatuated with Kevin Banks. And I believe I heard that off of Pro Football Talks podcast, despite what you all think about Florio. I personally love him, but I'm still going Simmons here. You still got time to develop him and even like kind of have him recover from that injury to the patellar tendon, because you still got Beachum and Jonah Williams over there, and plus you can learn from some of those guys. Hopefully he learns a little better stance than Kelvin Beachum, but I would go Simmons if forced to pick between those 2 at 23.
Very nice. Very nice. We got Russ Carver in here, a huge Benjamin Morrison advocate. Another case of somebody falling from where he would have been due to injury, which, yeah, like Drew said, would have been in contention for at least in the top 3 cornerbacks in this class without that injury. He does have kind of scary injuries. That is true and needs to be acknowledged. Jake Worley is acknowledging that 2 hip injuries are a scary proposition for Morrison, but I hope for his success. Yeah, if he ends up being the pick, then I know he will have gone through so many layers of medical perusal from physicians that at least they're confident in his ability to bounce back from that. Eric Reed is saying Craig Woodson is an absolute stud, which I would have to watch more games on that too, because I've really not watched much California football this year, I will admit. Jake Wordley, he might be gone to the Raiders, talking about Membu. I mean, Membu, 6 to the Raiders, 7 to the Jets.
No.
And at the very latest, what? San Francisco?
We should throw this out there. I mean, maybe not specific details, but we have a friend of a friend of a friend type thing that Membu is going in the top. He has a guarantee from his agent that he's going in the top 10.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much a lock for the top 10. We've got Dana here talking about Ty Felton, 6'1", 183 with a 4.38 40. It's one of the 20 receivers with numbers in that range in this draft, but he is the one that got a 30 visit. Yeah, Ty Felton's interesting.
You brought in a wide receiver on a top 30.
Well, they're a 30 visitor. They're the way they, as we've talked about before, they're not necessarily top 30, meaning they're just 30 players they want to look at, but teams use those visits on players up and down the draft board, just someone they want to see for some reason.
I just didn't know we brought in any wide receivers.
Yeah. I think he's the only one on the blessed list.
Yeah. Him and the guy from Auburn. Yeah, Keandre Lambert-Smith, who is also just like a vertical threat, deep receiver type of guy. Robert Moore saying it's good trade value. He likes Broughton from Texas. Morrison could be good depending on those hips. Not a fan of Banks, projects more as a guard. Overall good draft, grade B. All right, so
that may be the best grade I've gotten from anyone in the chat for this entire offseason, so I will take it.
Dana here, Golden came in too, I thought. I don't think the Cardinals have met with Matthew Golden.
Was a combine visit. So the blessed list has them differentiated by 30 visits, combine, pro day visits, right? And so his was a combine visit.
Gotcha. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Not joined with us tonight, but hopefully in the chat we've got Brian Abdallah, someone who has co-hosted this offseason with me and Drew. Let's go over his real quick. We've got a trade down to 20. So 20 is the Broncos, I believe, taking Michael Williams, the edge out of Georgia. And then, oh my gosh, what was going on with his simulator?
Kenneth Grant at 51 is slam dunk.
Kenneth Grant at 51 is like a night before the draft bong photo. But it would have to be something other than that now, because no one would care about a bong photo in 2025.
Right.
But at 59, Arante Ursery, the tackle for Minnesota, an offensive guard at 99, Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia, Kobe Bryant, one of the fun, underrated cornerbacks in this class, both Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson out of Kansas, really fun ball hawk type of corners. Dante Thornton, wide receiver out of Tennessee at 119, and then linebacker Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame at 159. I mean, what everyone's going to take away from this one is just Kenneth Grant at 51, because that's crazy work.
That's an A+ right there.
Ursery at 59 is good enough value, and he's another one. Just saw he was reported today as another 30 visit, so he's off the blessed list that he should be on there, but he was another one that we did meet with.
Yeah, man. If this happened, I would be very happy, man. In a world in which this was possible, I would take it. I have my own concerns about Michael Williams as a fit for the Cardinals. We talked about some in a stream on my channel on Friday, I think. But still, serious player. Robert Moore saying some serious negative news needs to come out 24 hours before the draft for Grant to drop like that. Yeah, it would have to be really serious. Really, really, really serious. Williams there at 20 even would be a miracle, according to Paul G. You get this draft, we are in the catbird seat. Nice job. I mean, yeah, if something like that fell, we would be in it. Mac Williams pointing out that PFN has a second round grade on Kenneth Grant. Really interesting.
I was going to say, do you guys remember the last Michigan defensive tackle we took in the second round?
Michigan defensive tackle.
No, and that's not a good sign.
Was it Kyle Vandenbosch?
No, it was past that. I don't think I was Vandenbosch, Michigan. I don't know.
Maybe he
But
wasn't.
I'm pretty sure it was in 2006 or 2007. We traded a whole bunch of picks to go up and get Buster Davis.
Buster Davis.
I forgot.
That's some real Cardinals fanship right there.
That's
Yeah, and Vandenbosch was Nebraska, so yeah. Okay, Buster Davis. Wow.
For some reason, I was thinking. I forgot.
I'm pretty sure that was his name. Was Buster something?
Yeah.
Buster Branch, Buster Rhymes. Who knows?
Eric Reed here saying Ursery's a massive man that could start out at right guard and be their right tackle for years after Jonah Williams is gone. Joe, you have something you want to say about that?
Yeah, no to that. Sorry. No. Well, we talked about this, and I don't like the idea of drafting someone to be a tackle of the future and playing the guard. Maybe it's Josh Jones kind of trauma, but if you're drafting him to be a tackle, play him a tackle. I can live with what they did with Paris Johnson Jr. from one side to the other, especially since, he did fine with that and is back in his natural position. But don't do that. I see AVB is our resident offensive line expert seems to agree with that.
Please explain, Aaron. Yeah.
All I will say, and I'll save a lot of talking, is watch Joe Thuney play tackle in the Super Bowl against the Eagles.
Oof. Yeah.
That's all you need to see about the guard to tackle transition.
And I think that the deal is you draft someone to be a tackle, and then you move them to guard if they don't make it a tackle, right? But you don't play them at guard to put them back out at tackle.
Yeah, you can always go in, but you can never go back out because it changes so many things with technique and a whole bunch of stuff.
So I think like in a scenario where we take Kelvin Banks and we're taking him with the mindset that he is the right guard, then that is different. You're drafting him to be your guard regardless of what their positional designator is in front of their name. But to take someone, bounce him inside, and then 1 to 2 years later down the road, expect to bounce him right back out is problematic for their development. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Then I'd also add the almighty chart says don't draft a guard in the first round. So if you're not drafted to be a tackle, then it's heresy.
So Robert Moore's giving this an A+.
In the real world,
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, this is a bit of a fantasy world, but that would be pretty nice. Jake Worley saying that Josh Sweat made money off of Joe Thuney from that Super Bowl, which is very true. You can be an all-pro, one of the best, and not be able to play.
I thought I got my names mixed
Alan
up.
Branch.
Yeah,
that's who it was. That's who it was. That's
I remember him.
I knew it started with a B, but I thought Buster Davis was it, man.
We all saw the name. We're all like that.
We're like, yeah.
All right.
It was Buster Douglas.
No, Buster Davis was the linebacker from Florida State, though. That I knew. I was like, I really thought he was a linebacker, but that's right. Yeah. Alan Branch. I forgot about that guy.
All right.
Hey, the almighty chart. Praise be.
Praise. Take a minute. All right. Well, we've got a Twitter submitted from Get Gannoned 2. His also from PFN. So let's see if they do something crazy on this one. But this one looks pretty normal. At 24, we got some sort of trade down to, I believe, Minnesota at 24. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State, someone we've talked a lot about. Landon Jackson, edge out of Arkansas at 48. Omar Norman Lott still at 78. He is a variety of places depending on the simulator you use. PFF has him much, much, much higher than that now. Demetrius Knight, linebacker at 94. That's kind of wild. Miles Frazier, guard out of LSU at 116. And then our 7th round pick is on Keandre Lambert-Smith, who is someone we've used a 30 visit on. Like we mentioned, kind of one of those deep threat receivers. So the first 2 picks to me look pretty solid. Like something realistic as well. Josh Simmons, Landon Jackson.
It's realistic, but I mean, I can live with Simmons. I just am not a fan of Landon Jackson. I'd have to go back into the Discord to see my little scouting report on him. But other than that, I think it's solid. But because of Landon Jackson, I'll give it a C+.
All right, Mac Williams is clarifying that this was actually a trade down to 33 with Cleveland and then back up with the Vikings to get Simmons. All right, so I guess that's where we also get pick 94 in there. Demetrius Knight being there at 94 is something I don't envision either, because he is kind of in that contention for top 4 linebacker. Carson Schwetzinger, Demetrius Knight is in this sort of realm. Lasting all the way to the 3rd round would be pretty weird, even though he will be a 25-year-old rookie, which is by far the biggest knock on him. But Omar Norman Lott, truthfully, I don't think is making it past 50 based off the type of steam he's been getting the past couple of weeks. I do kind of like Landon Jackson because his combine performance really stuck out in my mind just watching him. And also I've seen so many of the clips of him going into college and then his combine drills, and you can tell hard worker, like really honed his craft throughout college, and specifically his last season at Arkansas, where he actually started putting some real production together. So Landon Jackson in that realm of 2nd round edge that gets thrown into the rotation, but doesn't necessarily have to be your number 1 sack getter year 1. Braden Swinson, players like that. I kind of like it. I would give this a B.
Yeah, I give this a solid B for sure. I think, like I said, Demetrius Knight I think linebackers are going to be weird this year, and where they actually go, I could definitely see them falling, and I could see that happening with given his age and everything. I'm not as concerned about it for that position, especially if you're talking about needing a guy to wear the green dot. I don't mind him having a little bit more experience and being ready, more day 1 ready at that position specifically.
That's probably one position where I'm more okay with it than like a 25-year-old wide receiver, where you're drastically reducing that super athletic prime that you want out of them. Yeah. Like Mike linebacker, if you got to pick in that world, it's either like a lineman or a Mike linebacker who he's older. That's a knock, but it's not like getting a 25-year-old quarterback or a 25-year-old running back. Oh my God, imagine a 25-year-old running back.
One contract and done.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's basically Velus Jones from the Bears.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you're not going to do that at certain skill position. 25-year-old cornerback. No, but.
Well, you could take the 28-year-old Brandon Whedon as a 1st-round pick if you wanted.
Right.
I was going to say, I'm less concerned about 25-year-old quarterbacks nowadays just because they're playing until 37, 38 years old.
Right. How old was Michael Penix last year when he was a rookie? 24?
20.
You know, and like, here's the real bigger question, like with some of those positions is like, there's certain positions like you're talking about, you want them in their physical prime, and, you know, receiver, running back, you want them in their first contract to that. But there is, with the positions where they have longer careers, there still is the question of how close to their ceiling are they and how much room for development, you know, because, you know, someone like Demetrius Knight has that experience, and midside linebacker, you're not as worried about the wheels falling off, but you do wonder how much better can he get? You know, so if you need a guy to come in and play right away and have a quicker, you know, shorter learning curve, then great. If you're trying to develop someone who you want to be a higher end player, you probably are going with someone younger, maybe even later, who's more traits based.
Right. I agree. And Paul G is here asking about Mike Green, who I don't remember on any of these mocks. So might as well give my take on him now. He will go in the first round, I do believe. I would be flabbergasted if he's a Cardinal.
He'll
His
get close.
his problems are not just old high school teammates saying he's selfish and doesn't pass the ball like Kobe. His are like actual potentially legal allegations that the Cardinals, when there's other talent on the board, are not going to mess with. In my opinion, it's just not worth the trouble. I would be shocked if Mike Green is a Cardinal.
If it wasn't for that, he would be my edge too, and it wouldn't even be close.
He's super talented.
The fact that he has it's just such a bummer. And it's, again, they're allegations, and there were never any charges and everything, but he got kicked off a team for it. And I just have a hard time seeing Monty picking a guy that got kicked off a team in the first round.
Well, and there were charges or there were allegations twice.
Two.
And yes, sometimes I get it. You know, this is a dicey thing, but 2 different places, 2 different allegations. That's a big
You start to go down the Watson route.
Right. And
There's
you
a
just
point,
you don't want to even touch it when you don't have to. Like, these are players that you choose to draft, so you are bringing into the building something. You're not going to touch it. Nathan here saying, hot take, guard is our biggest need. Not sure how much of a hot take that is, because right guard is the biggest hole, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
I think I'm higher on Isaiah Adams, I think, than other people. I know he wasn't the best in pass protection, but he got better as the year went on. He was a rookie. They drafted, you know, in the almighty chart, praise be. They don't take, like, they've only taken a guard in the 3rd round once before on the chart, right? Usually it's 4th round. So they like him.
Yeah.
They took him around earlier than Monty's pedigree of or background says you should take a guard. So, and again, he was a rookie. You know, there's some development time. They like the tools, so you need him to get better. But I really think what you need more than a right guard is a left guard to develop to replace Evan Brown, who they brought back, who's probably going to be the starter. But you need the guy who's the future left guard starter.
Valid.
But what does AVB think about Isaiah Adams?
I think he came on towards the end of the year, like back half of the year. I mean, he stepped in as well as he could for Will Hernandez when he went down. Of course, rookie's going to struggle against guys like Leonard Williams and, you know, those annoying LA Rams defenders that always seem to do something against us. But I think he played very admirably towards the end, and, you know, more time in the system is only going to help, and especially for someone, for blocking for the quarterback that he has, where you don't know he could be out in the pocket before you can even blink your eyes. He's doing pretty well, and I would like to see him continue to play and get better, and hopefully we found a diamond in the rough in Brown.
Right. And it looks like Russ agrees that Isaiah Adams showed a lot of improvement last season, which he definitely did. He started off in a pretty rough spot.
Wow.
We move on to another submitted one from Kohad in the Discord. I think the first one I've seen from you this off season. This looks like a pure stick and pick to me, so we'll go through this pretty quickly. We've already talked about all of these players. We've got Walter Nolan at 16, Benjamin Morrison at 47, Tate Ratledge at 78, Femi Oladejo at 115, Kyle Williams at 152, and Ty Robinson there in the 7th, which PFF will give you sometimes. It's happened to me too. But trust me, everyone on Twitter has informed me how stupid I am for taking Ty Robinson in the 7th. And I agree with Nathan that overall, this is it's a solid draft. This is a good draft with good players. And Robert Moore, it's a good old fashioned strategy, stick and pick draft. These are our 6 picks, and didn't have to go crazy. I think you can argue health dependent. You've got at least your top 2 are starters. if Benjamin Morrison is healthy enough to start day one. Tate Ratledge, if not starting right guard, is in that room for left/right guard competition. Femi Oladejo straight into the edge rotation with the other guys that they got, and Kyle Williams again in the fifth, kind of unlikely, but could also be like make an offensive impact in his rookie season. And Walter Nolan is the definition in the players around the Cardinals' interest that is the next Aaron Donald or the next Robert Nkemdiche, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So if you feel really good about your personal interviews with him and you feel good on all that stuff, then the talent is very much there for Walter Nolan. He is a great football player.
Does it feel like to you all that Walter Nolan right now is kind of the most popular pick amongst Cardinals fans? It's anecdotal evidence, but this is what I'm hearing a lot. It seems like he's the guy, if they stick at 16, that most fans are clamoring for. That's what I'm sensing. What do you guys sense?
He is the one I see the most in a stick and pick draft at 16. I think people are wary of Derek Harmon at 16. They want him in a trade back. They're wary of Kenneth Grant at 16. They want him a little bit lower. They're wary of any of the remaining offensive linemen like Josh Simmons or Kelvin Banks at 16. I think Walter Nolan is the most common one I've seen from fans at 16. The media pundits have been all over the place with the Jahad Campbells and the Jalen Walkers and the Michael Williams. Like that's
Williams
kind of
for me.
Sorry?
I've been seeing more Williams. I will not accept Jahad Campbell.
I've seen more Michael Williams lately too.
Now, I will note it's worth mentioning that he is a guy who now is ranked, like, I think, 8th on PFF's board, but he ends up lasting to 16. So he is often the highest ranked player left on the board. And the rankings on the boards always influence that. That's why you see Kyle Williams so much, right? Because he's really highly ranked, or he's much higher ranked than where he ends up getting picked. He ends up lasting just way longer. Same with Ty Robinson. Well, in Femi, like there's like the last 3 picks, there are all guys that when I do my mock drafts, like they're the best player available and they've lasted 2 rounds longer than they should, so there's sort of a selectivity effect that people are going to take those guys because, oh, look, this player is rated so high and he's there. So I think that in a weird way, in a recursive way, I think that is influencing fans' opinions, right? When they're doing their mock drafts, I keep getting this guy. He's so much higher ranked, and then they start to kind of fall in love with that player.
That's why my mindset when I usually do these is if a player's there and I don't think he's going to be there, I don't take him. Like, regardless of what the simulator is going to give me as a grade, I'm just like, Ty Robinson's not going in the 7, so I'm not going to take him there just because it's not realistic.
You win this draft just off of ADP alone.
Yeah, the other player that I see in that same situation that is ranked higher but is often still there at 16 because it's just situational is Malachi Starks.
Yep.
And I think minus one time I did it for fun and I got roasted pretty damn hard on Twitter. I took Malachi Starks in the first round. I think most Cardinals fans are smart enough to know not to do that. So it's kind of like by default Walter Nolan. Robert Moore is saying he thinks if Nolan is there at 16, Monty will take him. Due to recent news on Johnson's knee, Williams is predicted to go before 15.
As I say, Johnson would be the other name that I would say is on Twitter definitely has gotten a lot
Johnson's
of popularity.
Popular. Yeah.
I would say Winston is a guy that I keep taking him because he keeps lasting there, but because of the injury thing, I think it makes sense. Like that he could fall there and he would be a great value if he did for that reason.
Yeah, agreed. We've got Gazer next mock here. I'm not sure if he's in the chat or not. Another Walter Nolan pick there at the top. So we've already discussed that.
Ty Robinson, Kyle Williams, Tate again.
Yep. And this is him, I'm assuming, going off of the Josh Weinfuss report about the Cardinals being interested in coming back into the first round, getting a second first-round pick. And so he does that with the Kansas City Chiefs. comes back up to 31 to get James Pierce Jr. And then 7th round pick that we haven't seen tonight is Smile Monton Jr. But Walter Nolan and James Pierce Jr. in the first round.
Sign me up. A+.
Yeah, if like I said, if you're checked off on their like whatever amorphous character concerns are there, then yeah, you got 2 studs on the defensive line for a long time.
And Kyler, you've been saying this all along, and I've agreed all along that if with these players who have question marks, if the Cardinals draft him, it's because Monty has signed off because he's done his due diligence, and I'm going to trust him because I know he's not going to sign off if he doesn't feel good about it. So if this happened, I think that would just be a home run of a first round pick.
Yeah, I'm also starting to see a lot of similarities from basically third on down. It's some combination of Ratledge, Robinson, Williams, in some order.
Yeah, they're popular players in those mid rounds, but for this, if I don't know anything about the inner workings of anything, but if I see at the end of the day, Walter Nolan and James Pierce Jr. are Cardinals, I'm going to be pretty happy. I think that's going to be a completely reworked defensive unit that I would be really excited to watch in 2025.
I can't wait to watch rookies outwork Zaven Collins. I can't
wait. You're not a Zaven Collins fan, are you? There.
No, if you can go back and look up my articles when I was at Raising Zona when I was happy.
You've been consistent, if nothing else, right?
Paul G, I'm all in on JPJ and Nolan. Just have plenty of bail money on hand. JPJ, you get me 14 sacks a season, I will contribute to the fund.
Bruh. All right.
We got the next one from Red C.
Dark mode one, good.
Speaking of Will Johnson, does take Will Johnson at 16, which has been pretty popular the last few weeks, I think, because he has been lasting to 16 in a lot of simulators. And then also JPJ again at 24. So some sort of trade up back to Minnesota's pick. And then Jonah Savanea at 78, the tackle / guard from Arizona. Ty Robinson again, Jack Kaiser again, and then Keandre Lambert-Smith. Again, just like a toolsy, fast wide receiver to take late, take a flyer on. So really, all we've got to talk about here, Will Johnson at 16. Does that make sense? Does cornerback make sense that high?
Yes. I'm still not sold on Max Melton. And I think Max Melton is the next weakest link behind SMB. And, obviously first year player is going to struggle a little bit, but when you are facing, well, I know all the caliber receivers are gone, but it is a passing league. You need to have people who can hold that down and maybe get more coverage sacks out of it, especially for RD line. So I'm a fan of Will Johnson there.
Yeah, right. I like this. I think, like you said, you're just raising the floor. You're getting enough good players at some point that Will Johnson is somebody, he's going to make the room better. So if he's there and he's the best player available, just take him.
We talked about this on your channel when we did the live stream this week, Kyler, I had for a long time been of the mind, no, we don't need more cornerbacks. I get that our cornerbacks are a lot of unproven guys, but we've drafted so many of them with potential that I just kind of want to see who develops and becomes the guy. So like that between, you've got Garrett Williams, your slot is locked down. So you've got that helps out a lot. And then you've got Jaden Davis, who hasn't even played, Keitrell Clark, Starling Thomas,
I forget about Clark.
Elijah Jones
hasn't played.
Matt Wright, who hasn't played, who was a third rounder, right? Who a lot of people really liked, and Max Melton, and then Sean Murphy-Bunting. We know how we feel about that. And then you've even brought in a couple other guys, but like amongst those guys, I just wanted to see who developed. Like if Max Melton, he has the tools. He didn't play well for lots of stretches, but he has the tools. Can they develop and figure out, and let's just see which of these guys they've drafted ends up being the guys. That's where I had been for a long time. And there's still part of me that feels that way, but I'm increasingly coming around to the idea of getting another cornerback and just early, right? And getting a guy with high end tools and ability and just take the pressure off Max Melton, let him develop into your number 2 cornerback, and really just go, invest in that room with high end talent, not just numbers. And I think, if to be fair, I think part of the reason I'm more open to that is because of the way this draft is structured, because there isn't anyone else in the first round that I'm enamored with. Like there's a lot of players I like on day 2, but like when I look at the draft board on day 1, there's no one else that I'm like, I got to have this guy. There's no one I'm excited about. So if you tell me, yeah, let's take one of the top cornerbacks in this draft, okay, let's go high end at this position then, because there's no one else that I'm pounding the table for at this draft spot.
Well, it is a strategy.
Yeah.
If you want to have a defense that relies on an elite secondary, that can work. You have to build your team to be that way, but that is a totally viable strategy. It seems more likely that the strategy is edge and defensive line, stout as you can possibly get to make the job of the secondary easier. That seems to be the direction, but they could go a different way. I wouldn't be mad with a cornerback in the first round. Well, I take that back. I won't be mad with Will Johnson in the first round. I would be kind of mad with Jahdae Barron, who I don't think will be there at 16, so I don't think that's much of a danger. We've got slot locked down. Garrett Williams is already an elite slot cornerback. We're good. So
Jahdae played 649 snaps to 128 in the slot last year. He was an outside cornerback all last year.
Yeah, at Texas, yeah.
The national championship will do a lot.
I want to ask a question. This is a simple question for everyone on the panel and also in the chat. I would rather trade back than draft anyone that's projected to be, like, if I can trade back versus not trade back. That is absolute. I want to trade back, and I don't even mind trading back weight deep. I could even be talked into, if you give me enough good picks and future picks, trading out of the first round. But I'm not going to necessarily say go that extreme. But like, is everyone on board with yes? If all things being equal, my first choice is to trade back if we can.
100%.
No.
Okay, AVB doesn't. Okay.
No, I mean you've earned the pick of where you're at. 6 picks is, you could get more, but then you're looking up at either giving up 16 or maybe even a player, which we don't really need that right now. And if we're looking, to take advantage of this draft, unless you trade up, you're not going to get players with a higher value unless a magical fall happens. So stay there, take your guy, whoever's, if I will finally admit to best player available in this draft, just because the team is finally at that point. Historically, I am a needs guy, but stick and pick unless you get some sort of ridiculous offer. But that's just my take.
Here's my counter to you, Aaron, because I know you're not as high on Kyler Murray. Is what if you're trading back and getting capital for next year, knowing next year's QB class is looking kind of stacked?
At this point, I think it was on PHNX where Johnny and Bo made a great point. Like, this is year 3. You can't worry about what's going to go on next year, because if you're not going to go all in, you won't get to use those picks for that next year. So that's why I'm saying at the least you stick and pick. If you're really aggressive, you trade up, and who knows what can happen there. But I've seen the Cardinals get leapfrogged for franchise players, quarterbacks specifically, in previous drafts. We don't have to go down that road. And I want the Cardinals to be aggressive and trade up. I thought it was kind of a mistake to go back up and get Paris Johnson Jr. when you already had a first in the next year from the Lions, but it's worked out pretty well. So be aggressive, whether it's staying at 16 or moving up.
For me, it's because this draft class is so flat in the talent level. There's no one that to me is really worth trading up for that I can't get someone as good at 16. And if people are saying that the talent is so flat, I think at 23 or 27 or wherever, you probably are getting a player equally as good as you could have got at 16. It's just a different position. And if we're not enamored with a certain position, to me, that's my argument, is like, especially this year, right? But if there were a player worth going up for, it just doesn't feel like there is, unless you're getting to the top 10, which is too far to move. That's at least how I feel about it.
That's basically my take on it, that in a draft class that does not seem to have that many stars, then you're just kind of playing a numbers game from that point on. You can hit on an all-pro in the 4th round. Happens all the time. But you have to have enough chances for that sort of thing to happen. You're playing the numbers. If you only have 6 picks, your odds of getting a Pro Bowl player is lower than if you have 9 picks. So I think that is a mindset of Monty, who is a little draft pick goblin who had 12 last year and got to just throw it around and see what happened. And you're going to get some good players out of that. You're going to get some duds too, but you're kind of playing cards. You're playing a numbers game and trying to hit 21. It's not going to happen every time, but you have to have enough cards for that to even be a possibility.
I think it is tough because there are arguments for every approach, and I think it is, this draft class, the way it's structured is kind of unique and interesting. So for me, at least, I mean, I do lean towards trading back if you can pick up future draft capital, because that 3rd round pick, or that 2nd or 3rd round pick you pick up for next year, if you keep doing that every year, then you've got this extra day 2 pick that is really valuable for moving back, like, just a handful of spots, especially if you're picking later. If you're picking early, well, if you're picking in the top 5, you don't need a quarterback, then you also can take advantage of that. So I don't know, but I think you really have to look at where the tiers fall off. That's the big thing. If you can trade back and you don't fall off a tier in your board, then there's less problem. But if you're downgrading a tier, then that's a real conversation. Should you stay in that tier, or should you move back?
Right. All right. Let's see what we've got here from Lance.
Lance in the chat too.
For the remaining ones, I've looked at most of these. They're most, except this one, our players who've already talked about. We'll be going through them pretty quickly. We start with Will Johnson at 16. Think it's a great pick if he's there. Carson Schwetzinger at 47. Also love, talked about him. Mm-hmm. Get your green dot guy of the future. I think that's a great pick. Do have one we haven't seen tonight, Marcus Mabau from Purdue.
Wisconsinite.
Okay, Wisconsinite. Maybe Aaron will have something specific about him. Then we've got Ole Miss, Jared Ivey, part of that ridiculous Ole Miss defense this year. Jamari Caldwell in the 5th round. Kind of the player that personifies this is a really deep defensive tackle class. We can wait a long time and still get Jamari Caldwell in the 5th round, to me, which I think is great value for him. And then a running back in the 7th round, Woody Marks from USC. So, Aaron, quick thoughts on Marcus Mabau?
Yeah, he was great in high school. He took his team to the state championship and they won it. And, he was one of the lone standouts on a really bad Purdue team for the entire time he was there. Physical freak, very strong. Wisconsin offensive lineman, you can't go wrong. So it would be a solid pick from day one outside of my own state bias.
Nice. And Drew, I know you've watched more Oregon than me. So quick thoughts on a big boy Jamari Caldwell.
I just love the dude. Like I said, like Lance said, he's a very big boy, and they stuck him inside because they had Harmon, but the dude can play anywhere on the line. He can playing 5-tech at Houston to playing nose tackle at Oregon, like just super versatile and massive.
Right, which is fun. Those type of players are fun. He is, like I said, what I think of when I think of this is a deep defensive tackle class. We can wait quite a bit, like literally till day 3, to get a solid rotational defensive line piece and work on some other needs, which is definitely a viable strategy this year. Joe, any quick thoughts on this one?
No, I really like. I mean, obviously, I picked Swishinger, so I really like him. My love for day 2 linebackers is well documented. Will Johnson, like we talked about the cornerback, I think this is a really good draft. Getting some of those defensive players late, like Caldwell, you're getting your nose. He may not have, the pass rush wiggle, last year, but although he had, 22 hurries, and 6 sacks years before, but like he is built. 6'1", 340. That is that's your nose, right? So if you're not going early with a nose, I love grabbing that guy on day 3 to be your nose tackle. So I think this is a really good mock in general.
I agree. Like, this is not a sexy mock. This is a solid. Let's fill some needs. Jake does like that, and Lance, the thinking Jamari Caldwell will be the successor to Dalvin Tomlinson there at nose tackle, which makes a lot of sense. This is a very, very solid one. All right, and from Brian, we've got some trading around going on with Pittsburgh, and also with Buffalo to Josh Winefuss and get back into the first round. At 21, Derek Harmon, which is the range that I have seen more people be comfortable taking Derek Harmon than at 16. In the 20s, in the 30s, sometimes I've seen him last. Derek Harmon, James Pierce Jr. is a really strong opening. Like a real, almost perfect opening to this draft to me. And then Jonas Avenea at 78. Denzel Burke, a corner out of Ohio State. One of Drew's guys, Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker from Oregon. And then another Oregon Duck, Tez Johnson, wide receiver, who started the offseason really high, and then things fell off for Mr. Johnson, let's say, with some very uninspiring workouts that did not go super well for him, some measurements that did not go super well for him. So he has fallen quite a bit. But out of this, I think you hit it out of the park with 21 and 30. Derek Harmon, James Pierce Jr. alone would make me pretty happy, man, at the end of night 1. And then the rest, I think, the one thing I will say, like Joe and I have talked about, if you are going to go cornerback, I don't see it in that range. I see it minimum that pick at 47 in the second round, where you're still getting maybe like a Benjamin Morrison or a Siobhan Revell. Like, you are trying to get an elite cornerback, not in the 100s, most likely, would be my guess. But other than that, I think this is a solid A-. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'd put it there. We've talked about a lot of this, about these guys already, so I think I'm with you on the A-.
It's really solid. I think my 2 player comps are the ones we don't see a lot. Denzel Burke, while he is intriguing, he reminds me a lot of Sean Wade, who's not necessarily the best name to be thrown out there for Ohio State cornerbacks. And then Tez Johnson, I'm just so scared he's going to have a Roscoe Parrish style hit. I don't know if anybody remembers Roscoe Parrish getting destroyed against Florida State back in the day in college, but that hit, and then of course what's happened to Tank Dell more recently, that just scares me at that size. But as far as like his actual play style, he plays a lot faster than what he ran on tape. So.
Yeah, but we have a Tez Johnson at home.
Taywan
Palmer. So, yeah, he did not have a good draft season, to put it lightly. At Oregon, really electric player. I think if he had done no measuring and no workouts, he would probably be a second or third round pick. He did nothing to help himself. Paul G's referring to this as the red flag draft. Is it worth it? DK Metcalf's bad neck or Andy Isabella, which we have done, and that did not work out for us. All right. Any other thoughts on this one before we go to the next one?
Solid.
It is solid. Top to bottom, this is a solid draft. I'm fine taking that flyer on Tez Johnson at 169 too. Comfortable with that. And Justice 21. We get another Derek Harmon at 25, back up into the first round, getting Josh Simmons at 30, which is pretty rare to see.
It's better.
Femi Oladejo at 78, love. Kyle Williams at 115, love. Jack Kaiser at 152, like it. And then one of my guys, Willie Lampkin, at 225 in the 7th round. Stock away your potential future center after Froholt's gone. I like this one because the going rumor of the trade back up into the first round is to take a developmental offensive lineman, which I'm not sure that Josh Simmons qualifies as developmental, but he does have the injury thing. Maybe he's not ready like right away. So maybe that qualifies. And then he also wouldn't have to play his rookie season with Jonah Williams on the roster. So maybe that's what they mean. Like stash Josh Simmons for a year and let him replace Jonah Williams at right tackle the next year. So if this happened, I'd be pretty happy with this.
I'm just in general, not been excited about offensive tackle in the first round with the guys that are there this year, and the fact that it's a player that's not going to contribute this year when we're trying to win. And I do believe in building for the future, but for that first round pick to by design be a guy who is, unless Jonah Williams gets injured, Jonah Williams is starting there. But I do have to say, Josh Simmons, if you get him in this scenario where you got another first round pick who is going to contribute, right, in Derek Harmon, and you're getting a guy with high upside late in the first round, I can live with that. It's still a little, I still feel like there's an opportunity cost that there's someone else we could have got that could have been making a difference earlier. But I can live with that. I can live with Josh Simmons and his potential in this scenario more than I can sticking and picking with him at 16.
Fair enough. I think that's a fair analysis of it.
Yeah, like Simmons was my guy there for a long time in this process, and just knowing what I know about the injuries and this and that and the other for offensive alignment, it's made me a lot more afraid of that pick. But in this situation, this is the way to do it, because you're getting somebody, like Joe said, you're getting somebody that's going to already contribute in Derek Harmon, and then Simmons, if he does develop into what you think he can be. And that's another thing, is moving him from left to right, that he would need to kind of learn that. So giving him a year to sit and develop that as well would be nice.
Right. Like I wouldn't be mad about that. If this happened and Josh Simmons is there, I'm not mad about this. Not the way I would be with Josh Simmons at 16. That one would give me a little bit of pause. But this, I can vibe with this. All right, let's see. We might have one more submitted one. All right, we don't. That was actually our last submitted mock for our last Mock Draft Monday. But don't you worry. I know it's been an hour and a half, but we've got an entirely separate Act 2 planned for you guys.
There's more.
But wait.
That's what we need to call this live stream. But wait, there's more, because most streams only go an hour and a half. Oh, but wait, there's another hour and a half ahead.
Filibusterers Incorporated.
Yeah.
We've got an entirely separate segment after going over all of your mocks. The four of us in this little panel here, we thought it would just be fun to put some of our own predictions forward. We're going to hop into the PFF Mock Draft Simulator, and we are going to just do a full first round mock draft.
Let's go.
We're going to trade picks. Of course, this is the Cardinal rule.
Are we doing that?
We are?
So Dad will be picking for the Arizona Cardinals. There's a lot of pressure on him for that.
I thought we weren't doing trades.
We're not doing trades.
No trades.
Let's say, okay, this just got way more spicy.
We're all like redoing our boards real quick. Like, hold on.
Yeah. For the sake of simplicity, we won't be doing any trades in this. We will just be functioning as if everything's going to remain the same, which really, really weird year that like it is, correct me if I'm wrong, the first year ever in the what they call the common era of the NFL now, where every team owns their first round pick. All
Yeah.
32 teams have a first-round pick. It's their first-round pick. It has never happened before. There have
Something's
been
got
no
to give. And,
Yeah.
and Grandizer, I feel your pain. I'm in Eastern time too.
Me too. Yes.
All right, All right. So, we are going to do just chalk, I think. We'll do a full first round. We'll keep all of these settings as they are. I guess we'll put the speed down to slow because we're going to be doing it all ourselves and all teams. So the order for this is going to be Drew, me, Aaron, and Joe, and then we will just pretty much go in a cycle from there. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Drew, as the Tennessee Titans, you're on the clock.
I could really do what the Titans are going to do here on draft night and drag this out forever, even though we know who the pick's going to be. But I won't do that to you guys knowing how late it is. It's the worst kept secret in the draft. It's going to be Cam Ward. So if I was Tennessee, I probably would have done more in the offseason to try and get a bridge quarterback and go a different direction. But that's not the way they're going. So
Ryan Tannehill.
I mean, I would have done anything at this point. Give me somebody else from wait till next year because I'm not sold on any of these guys. But Cam Ward has the best upside of all of them. So if anybody is going to develop, I think in this class, Cam's got the best chance. So he's going to be the pick. I'll make it nice and simple. Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward.
All right, there it is. And I guess that's me on the clock for the Cleveland Browns. I don't have any idea what they want to do, really, because it's the Cleveland Browns, so they are really prone to doing weird things.
Like a kicker.
Like a kicker. A month ago, I think you could have pretty easily just put in whoever the second quarterback was going to be to Cleveland. I'm not sure that that's as easy anymore. So I am going to go... I'm going to go a bit different, and I'm going to say that they're going all in on defense because that is the only thing that kept them in game.
Wow.
And I'm going to go Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. All right, Aaron, you're on the clock for the New York Giants.
Oh, I am Usain bolting this in. I am going Shadur Sanders right away. You need the moxie, you need the attitude that can handle the pressure, especially the media in New York. Shadur has been a part of a pro-style offense ever since he was in high school. And yes, I know people want to hate on him, but I think I can see why it rubs people the wrong way, but I do believe some people just hate on him just because it's the cool thing to do, and people don't want to see him succeed. The last person we saw with this much bravado or moxie was Baker Mayfield, and after he got the right system, it panned out that way. Now, I'm not saying Brian Dable is the right system or the people around him are, but you can't win in this league if you don't have a quarterback, and you don't want Danny Derps or DeVito or high knees on the airplane for 72 hours, Russell Wilson leading your team. So invest in Shadur Sanders, sprint to that podium.
Wow. Okay. We've already gotten pretty spicy in the first three picks. But Joe, at number 4, you're on the clock for the New England Patriots.
So this is tricky because you didn't expect Travis Hunter to be there, right?
No.
But Will Campbell is kind of the consensus. Everyone is mocking him to New England. And as much as I love the idea of Travis Hunter, I think Vrabel is going to go with the trenches and kind of keep it chalk in New England. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Will Campbell as the pick.
I think this is by far the betting favorite for the Patriots at 4. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that is taking into account Travis Hunter being gone already. So that is interesting. But I think this is a right pick for New England, too.
I don't know if Travis Hunter feels like a Patriot type of player because he's coming out saying, I need to play both sides and already kind of being – and I'm not hating on that, but the Patriot way – you don't come in making demands.
Especially with Vrabel and leave your phones in your locker. And
it just
growing men.
Exactly.
Right. All right, Drew, on the clock at number 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm so mad because there's a new guy coming up that's apparently supposed to be even faster than Usain Bolt, and I am doing that up to the podium now if I'm the Jaguars, and doing that for Travis Hunter because we didn't think he was going to be on the board at all. I mean, we were ready to take Graham totally. I mean, the dude was working out in a Jaguar shirt in his hometown, so
Yeah.
but things happen and Hunter's there, so yeah, we're running that up. Give us a we don't care. We don't have a culture here. Our owner is a AEW wrestling owner. Like, we'll do all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
We don't care. Like, we'll put that guy out there and we'll have him wrestle somebody if he really wants to. Like,
We are here
give
for the
me him.
spectacle.
Right? It's a show. This is sports entertainment, baby. Give me Travis Hunter all day.
Jags fans will lose their mind if Travis Hunter lasts to 5. They and rightly so. Like, I have talked in the past about Travis Hunter and my not full belief in him, but he's a really talented athlete. You figure out the right way to use him, that's pretty dynamic, and someone you don't think you're going to get at 5. So good for Jacksonville. And now this is where some of the tough decisions start, is at 6 with the Raiders, because it went in a different order than I think we thought with the top 4 picks. But most of the players other than Shador are gone who you expected to be gone by 6. And now Las Vegas is kind of setting the tone for the rest of this. Do I go Ashton Genty, which they could use? I mean, God knows they need a running back. They also need a wide receiver desperately. Do you go Tet McMillan as high as 6?
Oh, man.
It's hard to go wrong with Mason Graham as well. They've already got a fairly decent defensive front, but you could always add to that, just like I had the Cleveland Browns do by taking Abdul Carter. But I think what I'm going to do here is mostly stick with what I think is the consensus at the moment. Las Vegas goes ahead and takes the man who arguably should have won the Heisman this year, Ashton Genty. I think dynamic player, good fit for that offense. If they can just figure out their organizational stuff and become a real organization again, maybe they can get back on track. But Ashton Genty, great character guy, great guy to have in the building. I think that's a solid pick, even though it's weird to me to take a running back this high, but I'm going to do it. Number 6, Ashton Genty, which means, Aaron, you're on the clock for the New York Jets.
Yeah, and I know Jake was bringing up John Spytek. A little fun fact about him is he actually went to the high school literally 2 minutes down the road from my high school. So Wisconsinites all over the draft here. But for the Jets, I did actually for this whole process, I typed up kind of just picks I think would be there at the time. And it pains me as a Cardinals fan to say this because I want him to drop to my team. But if I'm the Jets, I'm getting Armand Membu right away.
Yep, I think that's consensus right now that he is just not lasting past the Jets.
Yeah, and they need it so bad, and especially it'll be more protection for Justin Fields and Braylon Allen and everybody over there.
Right. Yeah, the Jets, the Mekhi Becton thing didn't work out for them, which he went to Philly and has kind of had a resurgence of his career, and that's great for him and all. But the Jets got to address the offensive line. They got to do something about that. And let's see. On the clock is Joe at number 8 for the Carolina Panthers.
So when I look at the Panthers, they have a lot. I mean, they have a lot of needs, and there are a couple players that really fit those needs really well right now. I mean, they could use a receiver, and Tet McMillan would be a really nice help for their quarterback, who they think might be the guy. We'll see, right?
You mean the guy they benched like 3 times and then
right?
unbenched
But
last
now
year?
they seem to like him, and he did come on towards the end of the season, so maybe, so Bryce Young, maybe. And in fairness, he did play better as the season went on, but
he did.
So you've got Bryce Young, but then you also have some really good tight ends on the board, and they could use a tight end to be the best friend, right? You've got Tyler Warren right there and Colson Loveland, but everyone is mocking to them an edge rusher because they need help at edge, right? And Jalen Walker is the most common pick on those.
He is,
and in fact, they're outside of the top 3 or 4 picks. I don't know if there's a more consistently mocked player I've seen than at 8, Jalen Walker, as I kind of prepared for this. But Walker may end up being the pick. But when I look at this, I'm going to go ahead and go Tyler Warren. I think they're going to get a tight. I like getting a really good tight end for that quarterback to give him that kind of safety valve. I know it's early for a tight end, but it's a really good class, at least at the top.
I thought they drafted like a 6'8" guy, Warren or Sims, last year.
They've got, when you look at their tight ends, they've got Sanders, who they got in the 4th round. He's 6'4" in the 4th round. They've got Tommy Tremble, who's 6'4". He was a 3rd rounder a couple years ago, but they don't have a premium. Like they drafted a guy in the 4th round last year out of Texas. But that's not, that's a nice player, but I think they go premium, or at least I'd go premium here. Get that guy to be that build that rapport with that quarterback.
I saw some comments about it being too early for a tight end. I disagree with the modern game. The tight end is just as much a pass catcher as any wide receiver. You can have super viable offenses with your tight end being your leading or your second highest receiving threat on the field. Like Tyler Warren, if you're not going to go Tet McMillan or one of the other top receivers for Carolina, you have to have someone for Bryce Young to throw the ball to. Yeah. And right now he's got an old man, Adam Thielen, and Xavier Leggett from last year's draft, who was like funny. He says funny things on the internet, but
like, South Carolina.
like bro likes eating raccoons and stuff, and that's cool. But he's also got to catch touchdowns.
Let me say, this does go against so many things I believe about roster building. So I will acknowledge that. I like tight ends in round 2. I think that's a great place to get them. Reaching for them in round 1, they need to be really, really good. But I'll take the heat on this. It goes against a lot of things I believe, but this is a really good tight end, and it's a really big. I think you're trying to get this quarterback to be the guy, you need to give him that guy to build with. And they don't have great wide receivers, so he needs a pass catcher.
100%. Drew, on the clock at number 9 with what was going to be, I think, a really pivotal moment, but Aaron might have stolen some of your thunder. What are you going to do as the Saints?
Man, this is tough because, like, we know they like Dart. That's the real thing. And are they actually going to go with Jackson Dart at 9? And I'm sorry, I just cannot see it. I just can't see him going that high.
At 9.
Like, no. I mean, I can see him sneaking into the back end of the first round if they trade up, or if Pittsburgh is looking for somebody, but I just cannot justify taking Jackson Dart at 9. I couldn't have taken Shedeur Sanders at 9 if it were me. So Tyler Warren probably would have been my next pick for New Orleans. They could go so many different ways, but given the news about Ryan Ramczyk and his retirement, I think I'm just going to go ahead. I don't like the tackles much later, so I'm going to go with the healthy one, and we'll go with Kelvin Banks.
Whoa.
Okay.
They don't.
Kelvin Banks.
I do think Banks is going earlier than the 16. I really do. Because it's not a great tackle class. I think teams that want to tackle, and he's one of the last that are kind of that first round, kind of caliber. I think he's going to go earlier than we think.
This is where it's starting to get interesting. Now, I am on the clock at number 10 with the Chicago Bears. And Mason Graham falling to 10 is interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but for the Bears, who do need to shore up their defensive line, I feel like this is a no-brain pick. Mason Graham, you don't expect to be at 10, but he's there for you. You need some other pieces, but like they have running back listed as a team need for the Chicago Bears. You're not taking the second highest running back this high. You're not taking O'Marion Hampton at 10. To me, that's crazy. Mason Graham has fallen into your lap. I think
you go with it. I may be the most consuming Chicago sports radio person here just because I live in the region and the only good sports talk around. And plus, also knowing the AFC North that I have my whole life, Bears haven't had a good inner defensive line since they had Akeem Hicks a couple years ago, and before that, I don't know, Israel Adonijah, if you know your history there. But I would second that, but I know I'm not on the clock, so.
I just can't see another one that screams, please God, do this for the Bears. So I'm doing it. Mason Graham falls straight into their laps. Good for them, dude. That's an amazing pick. Someone who it was supposed to be a consensus top 5 guy, but I've felt him slowly trickling down the past couple weeks. So this won't be that crazy. But at 11, for our vaunted foes, the San Francisco 49ers, what are you going to do, Aaron Van Buren?
Is this where the first puncher goes off the board?
Yes. Yeah.
I was actually thinking of drafting a holder.
Yeah, okay.
Ryan Fitzgerald, kicker, Florida State, sounds good for them.
Chalk. Got it.
Well, considering how Debo was choking their kicker at the end of the season, so obviously the Niners are having a mass exodus, and Shanahan and company are trying to pull a big possum move, being like, "Oh, look, we're letting our bloodletting our roster here." So obviously they were the only division opponent that we swept last year. They really need everything. I know they've always had a big emphasis on defense, particularly the defensive line for a long time. At least within the last decade. But the guy that the decision that I'm kind of here deciding on is actually at the safety position, because listen to the names of these guys on their current depth chart, and you tell me if you've ever heard of them before. Malik Mustafa, which I think played a little bit last year, and Jair Brown. Like, who the hell are these guys?
Wasn't one of those guys in Lion King?
Probably, and somebody's name will be Simba next,
Yeah.
So I'm actually trying to decide between either Malachi Starks or Nick Emenwari, and I feel with John Lynch being, a safety and in my eyes a debatable Hall of Fame safety, that he actually goes and pulls a stunner with Nick Emenwari here.
Whoa. He is listed really low on this PFF big board, but I've seen Emenwari in a lot of first-round mocks lately.
Mm-hmm. Well, and because he blew up at the combine, right? He was the one who had like a freaky vertical and stuff.
He tested really well. Tested super athletic.
A lot of mocks taking him have Minnesota taking him at 24.
He was one of the 2 10.0 RAS guys. Yeah. Just super freak athlete.
So I don't think 49ers have a history of kind of doing weird things in the draft too. Taking punters or kickers, taking
Vernon Davis was a first round pick.
Yeah.
Forever ago.
So I don't hate that. Like, he's a guy they really like. They do weird things in the draft. So
plus Hufanga left, so there's no one back there to play.
Yeah, he is gone. All right, Nick Emenwari, we're gonna send that card in. All right, at number 12, that would be Joe. You're picking for the Dallas Cowboys.
I throughout my life as a sports fan have had maybe I need to tell you guys something. I actually have 2 favorite football teams. The Arizona Cardinals and whoever is playing the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
And on those glorious Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays when it is the Cardinals playing the Cowboys, that's the best of both worlds. So I would love nothing more than to pick a long snapper right here. But, everyone's talking about wide receiver for them, right? Getting them someone, to help out, across from CeeDee Lamb. And that does seem like the position. And right now, so the question is, which flavor do you want, right? Do you want the big guy in Tet McMillan, or do you want the faster guy in Golden? And both have been mocked to them. Golden more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that like CeeDee Lamb, he's a stud. I think McMillan is a better counterpart to CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, giving them the big bodied guy kind of to play across from him. So I am going to go ahead, as much as I hate to give someone who's from Arizona to a Dallas Cowboy, but I think they don't have they're CeeDee Lamb's their tallest of their starting receivers right now, 6'2". The other guys are 6'1", 6'1", which isn't short, but I think McMillan is probably a better pick for a counterpart for Lamb there.
I think that's a solid pick. If Tet falls to 12, then I think he's the pick. If Ashton Genty somehow falls to 12, he's the pick. I've seen Matthew Golden mock to them too. I've seen a pretty heavy emphasis on wide receiver for them. I think Tet's great for that offense, as much as I hate to say it, but I think he would thrive in that Dallas offense. So Tet McMillan, you are a Dallas Cowboy. And Drew, you are back on the clock at 13 for the Miami Dolphins.
Miami's another one I can kind of see going a few different ways. Just looking at the way the board's kind of fallen, I think they would be happy going defensive interior. I could see them going with a safety and Malachi Starks. But I think if we're talking about, positional value, and again, where this board kind of falls out, knowing that Jalen Ramsey is now on the trading block, and they look to be moving on from him, I think they're going to be looking at cornerback. And then it's just a big question again, who's your number one? Is it Barron or Johnson? And for Miami, with some of the questions about Johnson and his knee, we'll go ahead and go with Jahdae Barron as the first cornerback off the board.
Okay, now Grandizer is a Dolphins fan, and he asks us to make sure we don't do him dirty here. So does Grandizer? Grandizer says, "Please skip the pick."
Honestly, that is accurate Dolphins fan. My older brother is one, and that's very, very Dolphins.
All right, Jahdae Barron, is that your final answer?
Wow.
I don't know, Grandizer. Is that my final answer? Yeah, we'll lock it in. We'll stick with Jahdae Barron.
Perfect. All right. I believe I'm on the clock here at 14 for the Indianapolis Colts. A really interesting team because they've had really good rosters the past few years without being able to figure out quarterback, and it's just completely neutered them as a potential force. Clearly, they're not going quarterback again here, but I think this is fairly easy, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this for them, but they need a tight end like they need air. And Colston Loveland is the second best tight end in this class behind Tyler Warren, and they're not that far apart either. So I don't think they're just crying over the fact that Joe took Tyler Warren for the Panthers at 8. I think this is a fairly clear-cut pick for them. Go get the best tight end left and try to make your offense work with who you got a quarterback. So I am going Colston Loveland for the Colts, which means, Aaron, you are back on the clock at 15 for the Atlanta Falcons.
So the Falcons have been bereft of a pass rush for literally almost a decade.
Non-existent. Yeah.
Vic Beasley was the last guy to make double-digit sacks, and that was, the Super Bowl 51 run, which we all know how that played out. And so, can you go just to the edges, real quick? Or D ends, whatever it's labeled here.
There you go.
So there were two guys in here that kind of just screamed Atlanta Falcons to me because they've never really cared about any sort of distractions or concerns about production. So I think Mike Green goes to Atlanta. And it just seems right to me that his slide ends there.
I think this is a pick I've seen a few times. Mike Green falls a little bit from where he is supposed to be ranked, but I think that makes sense given the concerns. And he goes to Atlanta at 15, which means the pick we've all been waiting for. Dad himself, with all the pressure on him, at number 16, the future of our franchise on your shoulders. Who are you going to take?
Oh boy, like we talked about, Walter Nolan is really the chalk pick here. But I like the defensive line depth on day 2, and I think, I mean, if I have my choice, I'm trading back. But with the names here, listen, I do like I like a middle linebacker, but I like that in day 2, right? I don't want to go first round. I'm not opposed to offensive tackle, but we've talked about that a lot. I think in this scenario, I'm going to go Will Johnson and get that really good cornerback and just make that room a strength.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
like it. Will Johnson, no fly zone 2.0. Let's get it going. I like it a lot. All right, Drew, you are back on the clock. Pick 17 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Good luck fixing their defense. Have fun.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm clearly going defense on there because they have what, like 90% of their cap invested in their offense. So
In like
we've
3
got to
players. Yeah.
yeah. So we've kind of got to go defense. We got to figure it out. There's a lot of the fact that Jalen Walker is still on the board is kind of shocking to me at this point. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen. And yet Cincinnati, for some reason, I just feel so strongly in my bones. Let's say the board fell exactly this way. They would go edge and it wouldn't be Jalen Walker, and they would be the team now that Green's gone, because for what the report that I heard is Atlanta or Cincinnati are the two teams that are kind of fine ignoring Green stuff. So AVB went Atlanta there, so that was kind of perfect. So now Cincinnati is going to do sort of a Cincinnati thing, and they're going to take Shamar Stewart over Jalen Walker.
There it is. There it is.
That feels like a Bengals thing to do.
That's almost who I drafted. That was who I was between as well.
If you had Stewart, I would have gone Green there.
That really does feel like a Bengals thing to do. But it also could work out, and they have an all-pro in a few years. So, high risk, high reward with Shamar Stewart is all we'll say about that. And I'm back on the clock for the Seahawks. Hey.
JUCO punter.
They could always improve their offensive line. Always, perennially, the Seahawks can improve their offensive line. Which is really where I think that this pick has to go. I think it has to go offensive line. And for that, let's see. There's no interior offensive lineman here that I'd be comfortable taking as high as 18. Tyler Booker's the closest, and I still wouldn't want to take him that high. But they can use a tackle for sure. I think it has to be Josh Simmons for Seattle. They gotta beef up that offensive line for Sam Darnold. So I'm going Josh Simmons for probably the team I hate the most in the NFL.
Yeah, and I have had the privilege, quote unquote, of having my younger brother be a Seahawks fan for pretty much all my life. And the one thing he keeps always raving about is no offensive line, and you can look at the sack number. So I think that's a very justified pick.
Right.
Okay. So for the Buccaneers, I was originally thinking tight end, but because this is kind of like they can kind of dip into something where they really shouldn't. But looking at the kind of people that are still up on the board, obviously their defense was their downfall last year. I still haven't watched a lot of film of him, but I think Todd Bowles jumps out of his chair to get Walter Nolan.
I think this is where the fall ends for him. That's a very, very good pick for the Bucks. All right, which means, Joe, you are back up for the Broncos at 20.
All right. Hey, we got someone in the chat who's so sad that the 49ers didn't take Will Johnson. He's Eric.
I gave you a safety.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but like 49ers, when's the last time they took a first round corner? They don't take them early. That's not in their roster building philosophy. They build the trenches.
Allen Rossum.
Yeah, so they, but we're biased because we didn't give him the guy he wanted, so that's okay. So
Wait a minute.
Here's the deal. My brother's a Denver Broncos fan. Okay.
Oh.
I reached out to him and asked him just, obviously everyone's talking about running back and that's what you see. And so I asked him, so can you filter this? How much running backs that are still on the board?
We got O'Marion Hampton,
right,
who's that kind of number 2 guy.
Yeah. Now, so Hampton seems like the obvious pick. Okay. And I'm not saying where I'm going to go here. My brother says they were talking about potentially trading him for Genty, but the other name that they're talking about is Travion Henderson. But now I know it looks like a big reach here, and I'm not saying that's my pick, but on the consensus big board, he's at 42, so it's not as far. But I also wonder, though, if the talk about Henderson is with the idea they're either going to trade it for Genty or they're going to stay at 16 and Hampton won't still be there. I wonder if the talk about Henderson is this idea that Hampton won't still be on the board, that he will go before they do. So as much as I would, and I don't know if my brother's listening, would I trust he follows the Broncos very closely. I get this feeling that the idea of Henderson is based on the assumption that Hampton wouldn't be available for the Broncos. So I'm going to go with the idea that the Broncos are ecstatic to see O'Marion Hampton still on the board, and they run up and they go with O'Marion Hampton as their running back at this pick.
That makes sense to me. I think they're going running back too.
Broncos country, let's run.
All right. O'Marion Hampton, Broncos fans everywhere are crying tears of joy. And we are back to you, Drew. 21. Shadour's gone. What's Pittsburgh going to do?
Again, this is another one where it's with Pittsburgh, they could go a few different ways, but you're sitting there, you don't have a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers doesn't really want you. He either wants to play for the Vikings or retire at this point. So how much do you really try? They could go running back. I could see him going with the tackle, but I don't really love the tackles that are there. I do think Henderson's going to go higher. I actually think Joe is 100% on. I think Benjamin Albright has been hinting very hard that Henderson is the guy that they like there at 20. So I'm just going to do it. I couldn't do it at 9, but I can do it at 21. And for Pittsburgh, they're just going to fire. They need a quarterback. They're going to take Jackson Dart.
Wow. That it feels like a Pittsburgh
thing to
be
better than a lot of people think.
All right, Jackson Dart, the third first round quarterback in an incredibly weak quarterback class. But that's what happens. Teams that are desperate, you got to take your chance when you got the picks to do it.
When Mason Rudolph is your quarterback, you kind of have to do something.
Yeah, they are in quarterback hell right now. So they definitely need to do something.
Let them stay there.
Let's see. I am up for the LA Chargers.
Oh, this is easy.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Wide receiver feels easy.
Think about who their coach is.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Defensive line feels easy. And I think I know who's still left. I haven't seen go yet. Kenneth Grant.
Yep.
That's his boy. They need defensive line help too. So getting them a nose tackle and a boy that Harbaugh loves a lot, which he should. Kenneth Grant's a great football player. So that makes all sense in the world. Kenneth Grant is going to the Chargers. Aaron, you're up at 24 for the Minnesota Vikings.
That's the Packers.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
You're right.
I think he was trolling you. You got the Bears, the Packers, or you got the Bears, the Lions, and the Vikings, but no Packers. We gave you all of
that
them.
That was my original assignment. Actually would have worked out very well because I had brothers who were Seahawks and Dolphins fans, and I grew up in Wisconsin, so I have friends who were Packers fans. So I was just like, oh, I got this. But either way, I'll adapt. So obviously I did talk to some of the guys who were in my wedding who are Packers fans, and basically the top guy they wanted was actually Jahdae Barron, who I can't believe went off the board. Was he inside the top 12?
Let's see. He went
13.
13 to Miami.
Okay, so maybe not so unrealistic at that point. I thought it was a top 10 for some reason. But if there's anything that Packers fans have been really pissed off about, it's about how Lucas Van Ness, who I think was a first-round pick from Iowa a couple years ago, has just been a waste of space. He's a big dude, but he doesn't do anything. And so the Packers, in order to keep up with the ferociousness of the Lions defense, they're going to buckle down their pass rush, and they're going to go James Pierce Jr.
Okay, nice. That fits for the Packers. I like it.
AVP, I have a question.
Yeah.
Grandizer said that you have a brother who's a fan of every NFL team. How many brothers do you have?
I only have two brothers, a Seahawks and
okay.
A Dolphins fan. I have friends who are Packers fans.
Oh, okay.
And my dad is, or basically my family has had season tickets since the 1950s. And my grandpa, so my dad's dad, was actually with my great-grandparents in the south end zone when Bart Starr scored the winning touchdown in the Ice Bowl.
Nice. Okay.
All right. We've got Joe for the Minnesota Vikings at 24.
Okay. So the guy that is most I've seen mocked to them a lot actually went. That was Emanwari, the safety, Nick Emanwari. Mm-hmm. Safety is a popular position for them. They could use some help at a lot of different spots. I mean, they're a good roster, but they could use some help. They could, maybe use an upgraded receiver. They could use upgrade at running back. They could maybe use a little help on the interior defensive line. But, there's a lot of places they could go, but they do have a good roster. But I'm going to go with Malachi Starks. It's, he's the highest rated player on the board, highest ranked on the board, still there. It's a position for them that, of value and of need. They need to kind of get some help there to, Harrison Smith can only play for so long. So I like the value and it is a position a lot of teams or a lot of mocks have them going with. They're just usually having them go with a different name, but I like Starks for them.
Yeah, makes sense. Malachi Starks for the Vikings, which means Drew.
Plus Harrison Smith is 95 years old.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he is ancient. Drew, you are up at 25 for the Houston Texans.
This one I need.
The first team without a quarterback need.
Yeah. I was gonna say now I don't have to worry about that one, but I do need to worry about. All right, Aaron, is Gray Zabel? Is he a tackle or is he a guard?
At the NFL level, I'd probably say a guard.
Guard. All right, then I'm gonna make it Josh Connerly because they need a tackle.
They need an offensive line, considering they traded away their entire line.
They are stupid.
I don't know what they're up to, but God bless them. Josh Connerly is the best tackle left on the board, so they might be reaching a little bit, but you have to protect CJ Stroud. So
yeah,
makes sense. Josh Connerly.
I think in a different world with trades, I would have been trying to trade up desperately to get one of the higher end ones, but at this point, they're just going to take what they can get. So
unless they're going to hire or use the Cliff Kingsbury playbook from 2020, where it's all screen, so you don't need an O-line.
Right. Well, if you told me that, then I'm going Luther Burden. But
yeah, the Texans have stacked up every wide receiver they can find. and they're just going to throw them out there to protect CJ Stroud somehow.
Well, Dell's not going to be back anytime soon, so
No. At 26, I somehow get another division rival, the LA Rams. So I picked for the Seahawks and now the Rams. They make me so mad because they're still probably going to be good, even though they shouldn't be. And they have a lot of needs, but Sean McVay's just such a freaking warlock that it kind of doesn't matter. There's not another tight end outside of Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren that I would be comfortable taking this high. They will address that somewhere else in there. Wide receiver, they've got old man Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp's gone, Puka, who is good. Tutu
if he can stay healthy, right?
He can stay healthy. They just gave Tutu Atwell $10 million a year on practically zero production.
Oh, my God. I love that.
I feel wrong getting them a wide receiver, even though I think Luther Burden would be a pretty good fit and Matthew Golden would be a pretty good fit for LA. And in the top two, the true top two corners are gone. I might reach a little bit here with Trey Amos for them because they also have old man Tre'Davious White. I'm correct, right? And he's made of glass, so he's not like super reliable at this point in his career.
Yeah, he's been bad for 7 years.
Yeah, I might reach a tiny bit, but I'm gonna get them a good cornerback because they need to do something with that secondary. They can't rely on Tre'Davious White being around all the time. So I'm gonna go Trey Amos for the Rams.
Okay.
All right, and that means Aaron, you are up at 27 for the Baltimore Ravens.
So two players I thought would be here on the board definitely are. And there are two guys when you just even say their names that they just sound like Ravens picks. So I'm between Jihad Campbell and Gray Zabel. Just because the Ravens were the one team to take an FCS quarterback and turn him into the world's most debated quarterback, and it's Joe Flacco Elite from Delaware. And then Jihad Campbell kind of gives me like Sergio Kindle vibes, if you remember that. But I still think they need help on their defense, so I'm going to go Jihad Campbell.
Jihad Campbell falling to 27 is maybe the biggest surprise of how this has fallen so far. But I like it. Jihad Campbell, you are a Baltimore Raven, which means, Joe, you are up for the Detroit Lions.
Quick, I did just want to say that Jihad is probably going to start on the PUP next year, so that actually could make a lot of sense.
They also took David Ojabo, who was hurt in the first round or second round, I thought, pretty high. So,
have you looked at the Detroit Lions PFF grades for their starting lineup?
No, but I looked at their new locker room.
Okay, yeah, right. There's way too much blue. No team in God's great earth is really warranted having this much blue on their PFF. It just isn't right or fair. And I'm going to write a letter to someone. I'm gonna go full Karen here and write a letter because there's no way one team should have this much blue on their PFF. They are stacked. Such a good job.
It's a great roster.
Building this roster. The way, and then obviously they brought in Goff, and a lot of people thought he was just a bridge quarterback, but they've made him their guy and put a good roster around him. And they haven't won the big game, but they've been really good. They don't have many needs. They really don't. There's so many areas of strength. The closest thing you could say, okay, cornerback, but they've got guys that they need to develop. Like Terrion Arnold was a first round pick. So they're invested in him. The one place that I think, or really there's two places I think you could really argue going for them. One of them, Graham Glasgow is a good guard, had a little bit of a down season. He's almost 33. You could look at his heir apparent. But their offensive line is probably the best in the NFL. Like, it's just so good. There might be one better. I can't think of anyone right now. The other place, though, is you could get a bookend edge rusher across from Hutchinson, right? They've got Marcus Davenport, former first round pick, who hasn't lived up to expectations. He's been okay, right? But if you could get a guy in there, to kind of go and become really a nice stud across from Hutchinson. I mean, this team's already stacked, right? Just how much more stacked? And the way the board is falling, there's one of the better edge rushers, right? Donovan someone pronounce it for me. Ezraku. Thank you. And I think need meets kind of opportunity here, and I think that's the name that I'm going to go with. They're going to get him in there, and they're going to be that much more formidable once he develops into the guy that they hope he can be.
Makes a lot of sense, and what a great environment for him to go into too. The Lions roster is elite. A masterful job from that front office of putting that team together. Drew, your last pick of the night, the Washington Commanders at 29. What do you got?
Washington is another team that's got some needs, and just looking at the way this board has fallen, I'm doing jumping jacks. The fact that Jalen Walker is there, like I can play him on the edge, I can play him in the middle when I need, because I could probably use a bit of an upgrade there. So I'm just running that one in and putting Jalen Walker on Washington and helping their defense out, because they've done enough on their offense at this point. They're kind of in our boat. They should probably be investing in some defense.
Nice. All right. My last pick is at number 30 for the Buffalo Bills. I was going to go Donovan Ezraku until Joe took him for Detroit. It just made too much sense for them, and they need a little bit of help in that area. Really just defense. Although I will definitely make the argument they could use a wide receiver. Add a wide receiver to that room for Josh Allen. And I think that is what I'm going to do with this amount of wide receivers that fell the way that this board did. Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, and Matthew Golden, all pretty much graded as first rounders, fairly consensus, and all of them are still here. So for Buffalo, I'm going to go ahead and give them who I think is the best fit for their team, Emeka Egbuka. Now,
Okay.
Aaron, you're up for the Kansas City Chiefs.
At this point, Chiefs, you need all the offensive line help. And Joe Tooney is gone, so they are going to take Gray Zabel, and they will take a Super Bowl loss and be happy with it.
Nice. Yeah, they can get a guard out of that. Good pick. And the very, very last pick of Mock Draft Monday this offseason. Joe, what do you have for the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles?
So I will tell you, full disclosure, AVB just took the guy I was going to take, because when you look at the Eagles, this is another team that doesn't have a lot of needs, right? They could use a guard, right? They had it's Tyler Steen, third round pick of 2023 out of Alabama, was a tackle in college, playing guard, didn't grade particularly well, 40.7. In fact, he took a dip down in 2023. He was 53.2. So they could use help at guard, but Zabel was, I think, the guy that was worth taking there. I think I'm going to wait to day 2 for guard if I'm them now. So now it's just a matter of which defensive player are they going to take and turn into a Pro Bowler, right? Because that is what they do. And I'm going to go with a name that I think has been talked about, but it's a guy who might feel like a little bit of a reach, because there are guys on the board that are higher ranked ahead of him. But it just feels like an Eagles pick to take this guy and turn him into a stud, and that's Darius Alexander out of Toledo.
Nice. That does feel very, very Eagles.
And I see in the chat Lott's higher ranked, and I like Lott, so absolutely. Alexander feels like a higher upside, if that makes sense. And
at least they're not getting one of the top edge rushers in the draft for the 5th time in a row.
Right.
Oh my God.
I was gonna say with Michael Williams on the board and them having Nolan Smith on the team, I think they would jump on that one.
And that's a good point too. Yeah.
All right, guys, that was our last pick. This is what our full first round mock looks like. There are some weird ones in there. There are some players dropping into the second that hopefully will be available for the Cardinals then at 47. A lot of talent fell out of the first round the way that this specific board went. But I would say don't be that surprised if this first round is really funky this year. And there are a lot of players like that you think are first rounders right now that teams are just not as high on, or at least not high enough to reach on, and they're going to still be there in the second, and we might see some weird stuff. I expect we'll see some draft day trades. That'd be really weird if there weren't. I'm sure there will be, but I personally am very excited for the draft to come on Thursday. It's one of my favorite parts of the off season, really the NFL schedule as a whole. Love the draft. I've really enjoyed doing these mock draft Mondays with all of you guys. It has been a blast to go over your mocks, to share those with all of us in this community that Joe has built. So that is my quick thank you to all of you guys. This has been quite a long stream, so we are going to wrap this up now that we are done, so everyone can get a nice night's rest for work tomorrow. But other than that, we'll just spend all of our days at work thinking about the draft on Thursday. So thank you again to all of you guys. Drew, Aaron, Joe, if you want to quickly tell everybody where that they can find your stuff and your last final thought on what might happen in this draft. Drew, if you want to start.
I'm just making it easy for everyone. Just at AZSportsFan20 on Twitter. You can find me there. See you guys on Thursday.
Yeah, and of course my handle is right here on the screen as well. I also have a YouTube channel. You search my full name, Aaron, Aarron, Van Buren, like the president, if you know your history. And you can find my stuff on YouTube. I will leave you with this, and it's kind of a not self-made meme, but I used a scene from SpongeBob saying, like, when our first round pick is somebody you didn't even expect come April, and it's the scene where Squidward asks Mr. Krabs if you see someone who ate a pie who's going to end up blowing up SpongeBob with a bomb. It's a crazy episode. Look it up.
Okay.
It's like, you've seen this before, and then Mr. Krab goes 11 times, as a matter of fact. So that's basically what I get to it. I can give you the link if you need that, but just be ready for the unexpected, especially this year too. So thank you guys for watching. I know Callie's been doing these, and Joe has been supporting as well. These guys do a great job, and you guys are the reason we do it.
And Joe, take us out. It's your channel.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at JOKOMO13, JoeComo13. And I just want to say, thank you to Kyler for kind of holding down the fort. And Kyler's done a great job, kind of taking the baton from Mock Draft Monday. And I know AVB and Drew, you both have kind of been in there on various streams, and you all have done a great job. So for everyone who has been on this season, thank you. I'm really glad to see that this community can keep going, even if I can't, put as much time as I used to be able to. But yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and I look forward to what you guys are going to continue to do as part of this TCR community. So thank you all.
All right. And for that, we will be done for the night. Everyone get a good night's rest, and we will wake up in just a few days, and it will be draft day, our little draft Christmas. We can make it. We can make that long. Appreciate all of you guys. Good night.